All right.
Hey, how are you?
So good.
Fantastic.
That's fantastic. Well, you know what? I glitched out a little bit, but that's okay. We're going to start. And welcome to How Do Artists, a show that focuses on a single topic of conversation and asks the question, how do artists live, work, play, run their business, stay inspired, or handle challenges and adversity from an artist's perspective? Our show will speak with a diverse group of artists and creatives, and you as our listeners will have a chance to ask your questions during our Q&A session towards the end. I'm your co-host, Karlana Pedersen, artist and illustrator, and I am joined today by co-host, musician, and producer, Ryan Caldwell.
Thank you, Karlana. Our topic for this conversation today is how do artists persevere? And our guest today is Justin McAleece.
Yeah. What's going on?
Yeah. Justin is a socially conscious director, cinematographer of narrative and documentary projects, both personal and commercial. He has been dedicated to filming since 1999 and has won dozens of awards and hundreds of hours of content and lensed even more. He has conducted hundreds of interviews in a variety of spaces and is equally comfortable directing a team of 50 in a corporate setting or shooting solo in the Serengeti. I love the alliteration. With the birth of the Better series, Justin has redoubled his efforts into fostering transformative personal growth through storytelling and aims to couple science and emotion to change lives all over the world. Justin also wrote, produced, directed, and edited the feature comedy Brick Madness, and often returns to his comedy roots. Welcome, Justin.
So much. I feel like there should be just tigers just leaping in the background with lights and just confetti, just like cannons of confetti coming down.
Well, you know, it's trying to roll. You got to roll out you got to bring the enthusiasm any way you can.
No, it's good. I love it. Yeah. It's the biggest introduction I've ever had. It's fantastic. Yeah. When do I pick up my Mark Twain award for the
Well, you got to get the flannel
comedy
suit first.
Yeah, okay. Let's do it. Hi, good to be here. Good to be on the show. This is awesome. It was quite the day to make this happen on time. So here we are, live and direct. Yeah, I love it.
Absolutely. And hey, a quick shout out to our audience. We'll be about a half hour in. We're going to be doing a Q&A segment. So, live Q&A. We get both letters.
Q's will come and we'll do some A's. We'll see how that works.
And even if you have to jump out first, feel free to throw your comment in there. You can catch up later when you see the video on YouTube. It'll be a whole thing.
Yeah.
Well, hey, let's jump into the questions. Since we already established that you are doing all right today.
Yes. Done. Check. Perfect.
Okay, so actually I want to know, how long have you been working in film?
Like 20 something years. I mean, I graduated college in 2001 basically, and I was already doing stuff while I was still in college.
Right.
So yeah, this is 2020. So we're there.
Wow. Yeah.
That's fantastic. What have you learned? What have you gleaned over your 20 years of film experience thus far?
One of the things I think is really important to remember is that you don't know what you don't know until you realize you don't know it. And film is more about that than most other things.
Well, because there's so many aspects to it, so many different angles.
Yes, and you can definitely be on a set, specifically like how they do things on set. It's one of those things where if you figure it out by yourself, it's way more wrong than when you would do other things wrong. Like when you get there and you're like, oh, that's how that's done? That makes way more sense than any way I would possibly do it.
Oh no, I totally get that. Because like when you're DIYing stuff, you just kind of do whatever works in the moment.
Yeah.
But
there's super brilliant ways to do things that just would never occur to you until you see them. Yeah.
Or especially like standardized ways to do things too. That's also another one.
Well, and then you get on there and you're like, no, I'm smarter. I'm new and I'm revolutionary. And then you do it the way you think. And then you see, and then like 5 steps later, they're like, well, why didn't you do that? And you're like, now I see why I should have done that. That was a way better idea you guys had.
Yeah. I was given advice when I was just still learning how to record and stuff like that. And it was that if you make a decision, you better be sure you can back that up.
Right.
Yeah.
If someone calls you out on it, you better have a solid explanation.
Yeah, exactly. Break the rules, but you better know the rules first, and you better be able to say why you wrote the rules. Yeah.
Has to be intentional.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's I don't know. That's nuts though. It's kind of I don't like what are some of the biggest differences between you now and you 20 years ago?
Well, I mean, I remember back in college just thinking like if someone just gave me money, I would make a movie and it would be awesome and it would set the world on fire. And then like I actually made basically the movie I wanted to make back then. And everyone's like, well, that movie sucks. And I'm like, oh, so money would have been problems, not solutions. Okay. I get it. Yeah. And I didn't think the movie sucked. I think it has some really great parts. But
What movie was this?
it's called Titanic. I don't know if you've heard of it, but no, just kidding. No,
that was good.
I made a movie called Sometimes People Wear Black Shirts, and if the title doesn't confuse you, then the rest of the movie will. It's very funny in my opinion, and I think my friends in it are great, and I think there's a lot of really smart ass moments. Aside from that, there's not much plot and there's not much else going on, and the audience wasn't so into that idea. I mean, audiences want what they want, and they've been conditioned over decades, 100 years, thousands of years when you're talking about stories to like expect a certain thing. And so you can't just take them and be like, well, you're not getting any of that stuff, because then they're going to revolt. And that's just how it is. So you have to live within, you have to take the blueprint, the playbook, and you need to just tweak it a little bit. People want the same, but different in everything.
Yeah.
Any kind of art is the same, but different. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
There's a formula to it. You're saying there's a
that's not bad.
pattern.
Sure. That's not, you turn on the stove before you put food in. I mean, there's a reason that things happen in a certain order, and that doesn't make it wrong. It doesn't make it formulaic. That's a different step of badness.
Yeah.
Right. No, I totally get that.
Yeah. It's funny because I mean, there are so many tropes in film.
Sure.
Oh yeah. It's just, it's practically made of tropes at a certain point.
Yeah. And you need to utilize those to accomplish what you want. Right. You watch, I remember it's just like a very small instance. I was watching Breaking Bad one time, or no, it was Better Call Saul. I was watching a Better Call Saul episode.
Right.
And you saw where the camera was. There was about to be a car accident. And about 3 shots before the car accident happened, you saw the camera go to a certain place, and you're like, oh, there's going to be a car wreck. In 3 shots, T-minus, ding, ding, done, car wreck. And it's just like when you speak the language of film, and most people do, I'm not putting myself on a pedestal in terms of that. I was probably more aware of it because I know why I would use that shot in that situation.
Well, right. But you're specifically the one executing those ideas.
Yeah, exactly. So I have to put it into practice.
Yeah.
But anyone else who doesn't know movies, who's seen enough movies, is still subconsciously like, oh, something's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't like this right now. I feel icky right now for a few seconds. And that's totally what that is. So yeah, I mean, you have to utilize the language of film at all points, the mechanics of our shared knowledge of how all that stuff works, as shorthand with the audience. I mean, that's really what your goal is as a director, as a writer, is to get as much information across as fast as possible so that so that the audience can then decide how they feel about it. Because you can't tell them that. Don't tell them how to feel. You just tell them, you lay out all the ingredients so that they can say, oh, I get it. Here's how I want to work with those ingredients. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Well,
I totally get that.
No, that makes total sense. I don't know. It's kind of like in music, the equivalent is like, well, of course the bridge goes at the exact 2/3 point of the song every time. You don't mess with the winning formula.
Yeah. And it's
like
tougher. It's a 3 minute, the 3, 4, 5 minute thing or whatever. And so it's like, there's a billion of them. There's not a billion movies. And so it gets a little more repetitive in music, I think. It's like you have to play with it, but exactly, right? But it's still there and people still expect it. Yeah.
That's right. And there have been a couple of times where songs have tried to change that format a little bit, and I don't know how well it's worked for them.
Tool's still doing it. Tool's still there.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Yeah. Oh yeah. They're doing Well, actually, and it was I was talking to a friend of mine about that because it's always super tempting to go and break out of that stuff. But I mean, it's like you were saying, it's very tempting, but it's not frequently rewarding.
No.
For like anyone,
something great.
The watcher, the people making it.
No.
Or like, like I love Coen Brothers movies too.
Sure. Yeah.
But I mean, part of the reason that people who like them is because they're usually incredibly painful to watch.
Their whole goal, what they say is like, our goal is to take a character, put them in a situation, and just keep making the situation worse. That's
Yeah.
basically how we write a screenplay. Yeah.
So well, that's job
That's
well
what
done.
you get. Yeah, exactly.
Right. So with all of this knowledge that you've had and your experience over the years, I looked at all the stuff that you've done, and it's so impressive. And I have to ask myself, what made you go into film to begin with? Why film? Because you seem like a very creative person. In terms
So why
of
would you go into film? Yeah.
No, what was it? What was it? Everybody has their muse. What was it that attracted you specifically to the art of film?
I mean, very specifically, it was comedy, and even more specifically, I thought my friends were really funny. I really just loved that whole stuff that was going on during college, like the beginning of college. And I always like sketch shows, Monty Python type stuff. I was always really into that. And so I wanted to sort of do all of that stuff, make funny stuff, make sketches, get smartasses on camera. And because I don't, the thing is, like, you don't have to be, if you have $1 billion, that does not make your movie funnier. It might make it cooler sci-fi. It may make it a better epic. It might make a better action movie, any of those things. But you don't have a monopoly on funny. And oftentimes it's the exact opposite. And so like that's something you can get into with nothing. You could literally just stand on a stage and you could be the funniest thing. And so like that's something that's great. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying I am or any of that, but I'm saying like that's an approachable thing in a far different way than making other types of movies. And so I think that's what drew me to it originally.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. No, I like that. It's almost got kind of a Kevin Smith attitude to it.
Yeah, 100%. And that was what came out when I was 19, 18 probably, is Clerks was out, and there was other movies sort of similar to that. And the good thing about Clerks is you're like, oh, well, I could do that. Come on, that's not that hard. And
like
it sort of isn't, but it's
everybody's
sort
like,
of,
I can do that, and then you try to do it, and you're like, oh.
Sure.
Yeah. No, that's a thing. Actually, you know what? The earlier when we were talking about what do you call it? We were talking. I was brought up music. That's something that I've often reflected upon with film, which is the fact that as far as art forms go, with like production cycles, mm-hmm. and how long an idea takes to go and like farm to table manifest itself. Oh
yeah, terrible.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it is. Film is by and large the short straw of those of that production cycle.
Yeah.
You can go for years just working on the same project. So
I've never met anyone like that. 11 years later. Yeah, no, I'm well aware of how that works.
Well, but I was gonna say, how has that affected your like creative process when you want to go forward with an idea? Like you must have like something like a lot of anxiety, or you'd be really confident with it before you have to like decide to get other people involved.
Yeah, there's definitely that. I mean, just you censor yourself because you know that those things instantly cost money. So it's different than some sorts of ideas. If you're a writer, then you can write anything. If you just draw things, if you use paint, like basically any of those things are limitless. And that's not a good thing. That's a bad thing in and of itself. It's the other side of that sword or whatever, the other blade.
Right.
But yeah, it's very difficult because you immediately go in. My brother and I, 20 years, a long time ago, probably 18 years ago, made a short film. And it was us describing these characters within the short film, describing how the movie was going to be. And then we went and shot the things of what that was, but it was a very, low budget, us just screwing around version of it because we're like telling the story. But that's basically what it is. And then at the end of it, we realized we can't do any of that stuff because we don't have any money. None of that's going to happen. So then we just end it and then the story becomes a story inside of the story. And so then you try to get clever in terms of that. But that's what we did because, you're always self-censoring. You're always trying to be like, how can I do this for less money, cheaper, in a smaller place with less people and still get all the good stuff that I would have with all the opposite of the things I just said. Yeah.
Well, that's one of the things that blows my mind just about working in film in general is just, like you don't just have to have the idea. You also have to know how to execute it if you want to make it happen.
And you got to be a good salesman. And you have to have other connections. You don't have to have connections, but you certainly have to have connections at some point along the line, or else no one's going to see it. So there's so many things involved in getting a movie made. I mean, it's less now, but getting a movie made and seen, I mean, that's incredibly difficult.
Yeah, that one specifically. That's
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
because I mean, you can make a movie, but then getting people to watch it, that's the marketing, the distribution. That's the hard part.
Yeah, it's like pissing
the other hard
yourself
part.
in dark pants. You get a warm feeling, but no one really notices.
I like that. I'm going to use that. That's amazing.
That's my Uncle John's. He said that about 10 years ago. He probably forgot I knew that.
Man, no, that stuff is crazy though. Okay, well, hey, let's circle back to comedy.
Okay.
So you said you started in comedy. What made you leave, and then what made you come back?
Oh, I don't know that I left in terms of it's just you got to do things to pay the bills, and I don't mean that to sound like crass or anything.
Oh no,
I'm just saying,
it's true.
like, yeah. So you end up, because I was never necessarily intending to be a director of photography, and most of what I do is director of photography stuff. Nice. So you transition to where you can stay busy, to where you can learn things sort of more quickly. Like you're saying, being a director only is a pretty difficult thing in a lot of ways, because you have to find all these other things to help you actually get any experience directing.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You can pick, like the standard thing is to go pick a pretty girl, walk out into nature, and now you can practice DPing all day. Like, you just shoot some stuff. And then people look at it and they're like, wow, it's really nice. And you're like, you've already made something, right? And you don't even have to be a director in that situation. You put some pretty music to it, and it's great. But being a director, like, you need so many more things at your disposal to actually get it to have anything on the page later or on the screen later. And you have to end up being an editor at that point too. It's like there's so many things. So the point is, I moved to different disciplines to try to be good enough at those things so I could make my own stuff, and so that I could get the other things accomplished that I wanted to in my head directing wise on screen by DPing them as well. And that's what happened on a lot of stuff. Is I do that a lot of that.
Wow.
Oh. Yeah, no, I totally I really identify with that too, because
you have to be good at a lot of very disparate things. And
you also have to be able to call people out on those things too.
Yeah, probably, and not be a jerk and still get them on your side. And hopefully you just have people around you that you like enough to where you're not constantly yelling at each other, which I've been successful enough, I think. Yeah.
Actually, I was going to say that's a really good segue too. No, what were you going to say?
No, I was just agreeing. I mean, I think we've all been on production sets and have had to deal with something or another, whether it's music or film. So with that, what's the longest production you've ever worked on?
Well, I mean, in terms of total years, it's Break Madness for sure, because it's taken me 11 years to make it. And it's finally coming out this month, and last month the pre-sales were open a couple weeks ago, and on December 22nd.
What were you consistently on that for 11 years, or was that you took some breaks here and there? You
definitely took breaks.
And then
Let me explain it this way.
Walk us through the process.
No. I'm not going to walk you through it. I already lived through it once. Get out of here. There's no way I'm going through it step by step.
I'm so curious about that.
Terrible. No, let me put it this way. I have a couple jet skis that my cousin and I bought like 8 years ago. I don't know when it was. Anyway, I have a couple jet skis. I use them once every 3 years, because if I'm going to go out and screw off and have fun and do that, I'm like, I should be working on the movie. And so I don't do it, and I go try to work on the movie, or convince myself that I can't right now, but that I should just wallow in my shame of not having it done. So the point is, it's omnipresent. It's in the past, at least, it's always on my mind of something like, I shouldn't go do that other thing. I need to focus on this. And sometimes I'm actually able to follow through and focus on it and get things done and move on to the next step. But it's always there. So like, even if you're not actually physically working on it, it's still working on you.
Oh yeah, it's at least still chugging in the background.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
It's chugging in the background in your head, but how do you keep an entire crew motivated and into your bigger picture for 11 years? That's the part I am fascinated with. I mean, because you didn't just do this autonomously. You did this like it was a collaborative effort. I mean, I saw like the behind the scenes pictures and all the stuff that looked like was so involved on this high level production.
Sure. And I would say most of, like you're looking at one of 10, 12 days or something that are of like, say that level of production size. So we did that over the course of like 4 different shoots to where we got together for 3 days, somewhere in there of doing like the whole crew is there and we're doing everyone and we're at a location and we're having to get, we're doing all the normal stuff that production does. And we got the truck out there and we have a full crew of some sort. We did that maybe 4 times, like I said, for 3 days a piece. So that's like 12 days of the whole production ish. And then I did another 20 days of production where it's like 3 of us or something like that. So the overall length of the amount of days that we shot is not crazy. It's not more than most movies. I mean, any Hollywood movie shoots way more than 30 days. But it was spaced apart, to get more money. Probably that was part of it, to just do the producing itself. I'm co-running a business the entire time. And a lot of those weeks are like 70-hour weeks of production. Like that's all I'm doing. And so it's quite hard to find time in there to do something else that may or may not ever make you money, and like turning down money too. If you're talking about getting, a couple grand or whatever a day on set, and then you're like, oh no, I'm not going to do that so I can do the other thing that's a total pipe dream. Like it's just really bad business, and then you don't do it. So you're always sort of parlaying one thing for the other and hoping that eventually you get back to it.
Well, yeah, and you can never sacrifice paid work for free work. That's just
no, it's stupid. But then when does it stop? When you get back in there,
which is a good problem to have.
Sure, absolutely, and that's why we were able to do it when we did do it, was because we did enough of the other work or working on other friends' stuff. And I think people were like exceptionally kind to be able to come on and do stuff for cheap or very little or nothing, and just be a part of the project and be happy to like be working on something as a team. And I'm just enormously grateful for that. And so I mean, that's really where most of that came from. It's just like people wanting to be on the team. And I got feedback. I had people harp on me constantly about not having the movie done in not a bad way, like in an okay way. Yeah. People that were involved in it and they cared about it, because that shows that they care. Like that's way better than people being like, oh, you're still working on that? Yeah. Like that could happen, and that would suck.
So then how did your friends and family respond during this project for you?
I think there's that thing where I went through a variety of stages of like, it's a 10 to me, like importance level, day-to-day importance level of my life. It's a 10 to me. And for most other people, it's like a 1, if that. And it's not that they don't care about me or don't care about the project or anything like that. It's just like in my own head, it's so much more important. That's how humans are, right? We think that people care about what we care about, and they don't care about what we care about because they have to care about what they care about.
And
That's
you're
fair.
Creative on top of that. So
yes, exactly.
It feels like it's even more compounded.
Yeah. And so that ticking time bomb is constantly going off in your head.
Oh yeah.
And MacGruber's coming in there and saving you. And
MacGruber.
It's terrible, but you eventually get through. So yeah, I don't know.
No, that's it, and I totally get it, because like the things you specifically want to do with your passion and creativity, they're always just omnipresent, always there, always chasing you.
Yeah.
But actually, I want to touch on something that we were skirting by before, which is the big budgets versus little budgets. Which one is a better and more pleasurable on-set experience?
They are totally different. And I would say the type of project you do is totally different. So from a narrative perspective, I think it's nice having more money. I haven't directed anything narrative feature with a lot of money. That we haven't done that. I've directed other things, like prescription drug commercials that had a very decent budget for the day. And so that's cool. You get the time and you have the people there that you need, and you execute exactly what you guys have been talking about for a month. And so that's cool. That's good. It's and you get 4 different types of Danishes because you don't like the other 3. No, I mean, it's not that bougie, but it sort of is bougie, and it's great. But then when you go do your own movie, you feel it's like there's a thing. I don't know if you guys ever saw the movie American Movie. So
No, I haven't.
Really, really great documentary. Anyway, it's great, and it's about a dude in Wisconsin, I think, and he's trying to make a movie, and it's just a really sad affair, and his friends are kind of dopey, and things are difficult, and he doesn't have any money, and it's really, but he pushes through, and his name is Mark Borchardt, and he pushes through, and eventually they sort of make something, and it's fine, but it encapsulates indie filmmaking or filmmaking in general so well. Because it's always a struggle, and you're always trying to just bang your head up against the wall and hope that something comes out good on the other side. I don't know. So anyway, what I'm saying is, like, when you have $1 billion, you still don't feel like you have enough money. That's my understanding of like big time movies. You know, that's what with the Coen brothers or whatever. They're still gonna say, we could do something more with more money, sure. Like, or maybe not them, but at least David Fincher would say that. Yeah.
Well, and it's just something. It's I guess it's kind of a marvel, but I do like what your testament to indie filmmaking too, because it's just it's always like it kind of goes back to the what you were talking about with trying to figure out your idea and how you execute it with fewer people and fewer locations. Can I just do this in someone's apartment? Like, do I have to rent something?
Yeah. And part of why we made a mockumentary, I mean, that's a sad fact. Part of why we made a mockumentary is I'm like, well, it doesn't have to look great all the time. And if we get a boom mic in the shot, it's perfect. It was intentional, right?
Oh, yeah.
You build mistakes into the concept, and then they're not mistakes anymore.
And then it's gritty realism. Yeah,
it's perfect.
That's
what we're doing. Yeah, it's a weird thing. You never get to spend the same amount of time on your own project as you do on other people's projects, because other people's projects cost a lot of money because there's a lot of time involved. And so, I mean, today I'm sitting in the room with the dude I'm going to talk about, but like, you know, we had plenty of time in a great way. We had plenty of time to do exactly what we wanted. We weren't strapped for time. Even when I was trying to get on here with you guys, we cut early so that I could come over here and talk to you. But regardless of that fact, we had plenty of time to do that. We were going at 20 times the pace on something like Brick Madness a lot of times. So, you know, it's a weird thing how that works. It's sort of the opposite of what you would think it would turn out as, but it's not. Yeah, and that is kind of crazy because, I mean, frequently you think like, you spend more time on something, it's going to turn out better, right? But not necessarily. No, you can definitely ruin something by working. I mean, music, I think, is even a better example, maybe. Or like, say, fine art. Like, you could take a painting and then put 2 versions of the painting on top of that painting, and now it's a crap painting. Yeah. And that could sort of happen with movies. Yeah, you can work them through till they...
that happens in art all the time. You just keep working it and working it and working it, and you've really kind of destroyed the original intent of the piece. Yeah. So and that's what they say about, you know, director being a cinematographer or whatever. Like, if it's not working, start turning off lights. Because a lot of times 2 lights in, it looked really good, and then you have 7 up and you're like, this is just a bunch of mush. So I think there's an equivalent of that in any type of art. Start turning lights off, and maybe it'll be better. You know what? That's the fun audio equivalent of that is like miking things and miking drum sets. Because there's this thing called phase cancellation where it's like if you have too many mics on the same source, it will actually just make it sound thinner and worse. Yeah. I believe it. Yeah. all you need is Headley Grange and a mic at the top of the stairwell. That's all you need. John Bonham proved that in 1972. Come on, get out of here. Oh yeah, that's still one of the most revolution. It's still insane. It's like, he mic'd the bass drum and overheads, and that's it. And so then there's these people being like, I met people like, I use a 13 mic setup on my drums. And it's like, oh, do you? How does that sound? How'd that work out for Lars and his universally reviled snare drum? Or like you were talking about Tool the other. God, Tool's thing was weird too. With the I think they recorded drums for one of the albums in a room full of helium. Oh, really? Because they thought it would make hear that. They thought it'd make the cymbals cut better. And it's like, that's how you get your sound? You don't fantastic. All right. It's like, so now you're going to starve your drummer of oxygen? Yeah. I'm sure the gas mask doesn't make any sound either. It's fine. And Danny Carey's such a pro too, in like a good way, but he's always in his Kansas Jayhawks jersey, like hanging out with his long hair. And like, he isn't. That's so funny. Man. Yeah. What else? What else are we talking about? Ooh. Oh, go for it. No, you go for it, Ryan. Oh, it's so polite. So having worn all the hats,
what is your favorite position? Cinematographer, director, camera op, writer. What do you got? What's your favorite role to play?
Well, the most fun thing you can do, the most fun thing I've done was be directing on set doing Brick Madness. Like that was sort of, that's the high point in a lot of ways because you're solving problems in real time. You're with your friends. Yeah. You're getting something accomplished that you've worked on for a long time and it means a lot to you. Mm-hmm. And you're able to be part of a team in a totally different way because you're leading the team, hopefully. So like, that's awesome. But the thing is, it's overwhelming and difficult and tiring. And you go home and you're just like, oh man, I want to take a nap for a month. So it's a different deal entirely. Being sort of like what I was talking about before, but being on on a feature film, we did a feature film last year around April. And that was great. We had the full crew that we needed. We had some fun toys to go out with. You know, you don't have to worry. Being the director, depending on how many people you have, like sort of underneath you or with you, it's like there's a ton of stuff that you need to worry about that's not what people think directing is. It's like 1,000 other questions that can't be solved because just, logistics get in the way. And so I think being a DP on a big thing is super fun too. When you get to do it, for me, if I get to do anything with like a helicopter, or doing something, with a big jib mover, doing a oneer, there's all sorts of things that you're like, it's so much fun. Why wouldn't I want to do that? Yeah. So it's hard to say, but being the director on your own things when everything is going well and you have a great team, there's nothing that beats that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, especially if you're working with people and you trust and
Yeah.
No, that's huge.
What's a Stanley Kubrick quote. Though directing a movie can be like trying to write War and Peace on bumper cars. When you get it right, there's nothing quite like it.
Trying to write War and Peace on bumper cars?
Yeah, something to that effect.
That's fantastic. Man. No, okay, so now here's another thing. What's your least favorite role to do in like a production? Like what's the role, like what's the job that you can technically do, but whenever you're asked to do it, you're like, if I must.
Yeah, I don't particularly like producing stuff. I mean, there's just so many things that have nothing to do with, you have to do so much stuff on set, before you get to set. And if it doesn't work out, then it's your fault. And like stuff's never going to 100% work out. But like if you weren't in charge of that stuff, you come on set and you solve any problems and you're already a hero. So it's like, it's the opposite of being a producer is such a rough role for me, I think. And it's just, it takes, and you have to call up so many people and be like, hey, can I shoot at your place? Is that cool? Can we do this? Okay. And knowing full well that it's like probably going to take longer than you said. And you might actually put some scuffs on the wall that you said you weren't going to. So then you have to apologize for that stuff and whatever. It's so, depending on the size of the production, how good you are. We try to be good, and I think we are good, but it's, I don't want to do that. And I don't like doing scripty necessarily. I wouldn't want to do scripty.
What's scripty? I'm ignorant.
Script supervisor is the person that, takes notes on everything that's happening, seeing which hand you're holding it in, seeing if your headphones are on the right way, that sort of stuff, take after take after take. And they have a lot of homework too. Like script supervisors are badass because they do so much stuff that they're just on for 60 days at a time. They're like,
oh my gosh, just monitoring, just watching you every move, right?
Yeah, it's typical. It's
I do not envy that job.
It's 3D proofreading, I think is what it is, and that's
3D proofreading.
Yeah,
just spotting for continuity errors.
Oh, so anyway,
that's funny. Well, we've got a couple of questions if we want to.
Let's fire them off.
Just a few here. We have one question that says,
it is
Justin,
yes.
What was your favorite part working with a powerhouse actor like Anthony Taylor?
Okay, you want the fake Anthony? Well, he eats up the entire frame. He just it has to be about him all the time.
He'll just walk closer to the camera.
No. He just, no one ever gets a chance to talk. They get nothing in edgewise because he's just, saying so many funny things. No, Anthony is great. What's great about what we did on Brick Madness is we did a lot of improv. And so
nice.
We knew what we were gonna say we had everything sketched out completely. I mean, we wrote a 90-page script and it was all there, but we left a lot of room to be able to come up with better jokes or just take it in whatever direction we wanted to go. And Anthony, and I've said this before, and clearly Anthony is watching, which is good for him. Good. Way to go.
He has a serious question too, though.
No, okay. No. What I would say is like, when you get to work with someone who is as good at crafting a story on the spot, there's nothing better than that. And I don't think, and I'm not saying this to blow Anthony up, he's not even an actor, basically. Like he is, but he's not. And no, but I wouldn't take anyone over him. I wouldn't take Seth Rogen and put him in Anthony's role. Like, not in 100 years. Anthony's better at it, in my opinion. I'm not saying Seth Rogen's not good. I'm saying Anthony was better. And I think there's a number of actors that were on Brick Madness that I feel that way about. Nice. Other people might not, but that's how I feel. And that's all that counts. It's my darn movie. So
that's right. And to that point, Anthony has a more serious question.
Follow-up question.
As a director, how do you know when you've got it? That's a good question.
You have to identify in your mind exactly what you're trying to accomplish with the macro scene and like 5-10 points within the micro scene, whatever those happen to be. So you have to know, like, this scene has to fill in these roles within the rest of the script. And that's not only with plot, but theme and story, which are all three completely different things, and probably character, further in the character's arc or whatever it happens to be. And you have to be very aware of those things. And then you have to be explicitly aware of what happens when you cut this scene, or what happens when you remove part of the thing that you really thought that you needed, but that you can accomplish some other way. So it's a very difficult balancing act, I think. And I'm not saying I'm great at it. I think a lot of other people are, a lot of people I know are better at it than I am, but it is,
right.
It is trying to constantly get these ideas accomplished in the viewer's head without overdoing it, while protecting and giving yourself insurance in case you can't use the parts that you thought accomplished that thing. So it's really hard.
Well, and I bet you do build up intuition, but very slowly because of the,
Sure,
because the fact that you can't actually get practice on directing unless you have all the people.
Yeah, that's difficult. And you might, who knows when you edit it and who knows who sees it. So like if you make a thing, let's say you write a thing, shoot a thing, edit a thing, and then you show it to 5 people, but not 100 people, or you never sit in an audience with people or whatever, you might not even know how you feel about it, really, because sitting with an audience, or at least getting feedback from people, that's when a whole other gear of intuition kicks in, and you're like, oh, that feels gross. Now, I don't like that. That moment sucks now. I thought it was good. Now it's not good. It took too long. It's boring. It's whatever it is. So you feel that later.
Yeah. And I would say that that's very unique to the art process in film, because you don't get that in music until it's released. You don't get that in art until you've finished it and you've presented it, unless you're doing some sort of custom work and you're still going back and forth. But even then, you've got to complete it, and then you give it to them. Or so being able to get that feedback and then turn around and make transitions to change is really unique, I think, to the film process in itself.
Yeah, totally. It's not live. You're not, performing live, but you are doing a similar thing when you're doing rough cuts, because you're gauging how they feel and how you feel in the room, and what the difficult thing that I always sort of get hung up on is, to sort of echo back to what I was talking about at the very beginning, is like, when someone watches a thing or reads a story or whatever it happens to be, that thing is now in their head. And so when you're talking about step 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 100, that like a script sort of is, it's a compilation of steps to bring someone along, to bring the audience along, to get to the end and be happy about it, or sad, or whatever happens to be, right? Feel like they got their money's worth.
Yeah.
People can't forget that they saw step 12 when they tell you that step 13 is dumb. And I don't know if that makes sense, but it's very hard. So people will watch and be like, you don't need that scene. And you're like, you wouldn't even have understood scene 26 if I didn't have scene 12. It wouldn't make sense to you. And they're like, well, I just don't think you need it. And you're like, it's not true. You have to have something there, or you won't be there.
Well, and that's one of the hardest parts about doing, especially time-based stuff too. And I mean, I guess art in general is just getting like feedback and criticism from people.
Sure.
It's
being able to
it's-
receive the criticism.
Well,
sucks.
Yeah, but the hard part is also finding people who can give you articulate criticism.
Oh yeah.
Inarticulate criticism also has its value. I mean, you can just gauge general feel, being like, did I hit the mark? No. Okay, well then now I need to figure out how to go and fix that without, that specific input. But
Yeah. I got one. Sorry to cut you off.
Oh,
I
no,
got
please.
feedback on the first movie I was talking about, Black Shirts. Someone wrote, because I had comment cards or whatever, and someone wrote like, make the jokes funnier. Sweet, done. I'll just turn on the meter in Final Cut Pro, no problem. Yeah,
no, I got one of those. I got one of those recently. I was doing some like stock music stuff, and I got feedback from one of the curator people being like, "You should try listening to the reference tracks next time." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'll just try doing my job." Okay, fine, yeah.
I totally forgot that step. My apologies.
I was flying blind. I'm surprised I got this far. That was
yeah, like they must think you're a savant at that point. Like, you didn't listen to the reference tracks and you still brought out something that was like somewhat marginally okay. Like, yeah, they should hire you.
Oh no, it's madness. Well, actually, so let's see.
Madness?
Brick Madness.
Brick Madness.
Now, wait, give us the date for Brick Madness. When is it?
It's going to be on Amazon on the 22nd of December to buy. That is this month. That is in a scant week and a half or something right now, right?
Goodness, you must be excited.
You would think so. No, it's just like until it happens. When people are like, hey, we're going to make this movie in Zimbabwe, it's going to be awesome. And you're like, yeah, I'll believe it when I'm on the plane. We'll see. We'll see about that.
Even being on the plane, you're still waiting.
Yeah. You're like, we'll see what happens at customs. Oh no, I've been through customs far too many times, and they've been like, you can't bring this in, and I'm like, well, we'll see, because we have to. I don't have a movie if we don't bring this in, and yeah, stuff like that happens.
And then sometimes you bring it in, and other times there's not a movie.
Yeah, and then when I'm in during production, I'm like, well, we'll see when we get to the edit room, and then when you're in the edit room, we're like, we'll see when people watch it, what they say, and so I think that never sort of ends. Yeah.
So here's another question for you.
Let's hear it.
All right. How do you get a new project funded?
Well, I mean, there's a few ways. You can do crowdfunding, obviously. I think that's a tough one to do. And I think if you have a way of making other money, it may be more effective to make money that way. I don't know many people who've done crowdfunding that have made more than minimum wage crowdfunding. So that's
to get your project funded.
Yeah. Occasionally you do, but you are making a built-in audience theoretically that's going to want to watch the movie. That's one thing that's really good about crowdfunding.
Right.
Movies are so cheap to make, quote unquote, these days, mainly because the technology is what I'm referring to.
Oh yeah.
And editing, just like we have so many things at our disposal,
right,
that it's going to be really tough unless you have something. Excuse me. If an executive producer thinks that you can make it on your own, they're not going to give you money to make it. Because why would they? Because then like show them the proof then. And so if you go make a teaser trailer and you're like, this is way out of my league, I can't actually do this, I need the money, but I think you'll make X amount of dollars and here's why, then you might have a hope. But you still have to find someone that like wants to get their beak wet, as they say, like who wants to just be involved in the process because it's fun. I mean, I don't know how much that happens anymore. Like it used to be very much in like the 80s, 70s, whatever it happened to be. It's like you found the dentist and the dentist had money and he wanted to make a movie because he thought it would be a good investment and because being a dentist is boring. So then that's how movies got made. I mean, it's all the Coen brothers started stuff like that.
Oh,
and so a lot of things happen in that exact way. And then you made money off of that. And then you can go to someone else and be like, hey, how about you guys throw in some seed money on the next one? Because you got your money back on that one. I'll try to get whoever else I can involved. And then we'll get actual, like Hollywood money involved. But the problem is that sort of switch, like dentists aren't in charge of it is anymore. It's like Wall Street is in charge of it because these are venture capitalist money sources, which is a way different deal than it's ever been in filmmaking. It's never really been about that. So there's a even more, and I think it's in music too. It's like it's people who don't give a shit don't give a crap about movies, telling who to make movies and how giving, they're the gatekeepers. And so that's rough. Yeah.
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 I
So
mean,
I totally agree with that. I mean,
yeah.
Although,
How do you get money for Ryan? How do you get money for music?
oh, you do it all DIY.
Yeah. So I mean, like, I'm not trying to say it's broken, but I mean it's rough. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and the budget and the funding thing. Well, I mean, that being said, we do live in a golden era for DIY, though. Like, it's never been more attainable to just go with your own gumption and make something.
Yeah. And then, that when I talk to like the student filmmakers or whatever it happens to be, when I go talk at a college or something, like, what camera should I get to be able to do that? I'm like, you got an iPhone, go shoot something. Like, come on. Like, you can buy a $1,500 camera, easy, like a legitimately $1,500 camera, and make stuff that's way better than anything I've ever made. Like, you can. It's not that hard. Not to have technology wise. I mean, like, if you have better ideas than me, then your stuff will be better, and there's nothing else standing in your way.
Well, and even distribution. YouTube is the biggest video watching platform on the planet.
Yeah, sure. And it's I don't know. I just don't know who watches movies on YouTube. I don't know if that happens. I don't know if
everyone tries to avoid that, I think.
Yeah. They'll watch Rogan talk for 4 hours, but they won't watch a 90-minute feature, right? It's a weird. And I'm not even against that. I watch him talk.
No,
I feel attacked.
Yeah.
I'm off Rogan.
I totally get that concept. I mean, yeah. No, they'll take movies and chop them up and put them on YouTube.
Yeah.
But it's
not a platform for
it's not a platform
films.
for that, right?
No. So it's like, yes, you can be in everyone's living room instantly, and that's the problem. Because there's a billion people doing the same exact thing. So, and what gets prioritized on YouTube? I don't know. I don't watch a ton of YouTube, but it's like, it's not stuff I want to do necessarily. And if it is, I'm like, God, they put a lot of work into that. That's way more work than I have time to put into it.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a different algorithm that measures all of that. And so you totally have to work to figure out what those algorithms even are.
Yeah.
And how to crack them so that you have a chance at leveling the playing field. And to your point, because of that, everyone has an opportunity to put whatever they want out because it's so accessible.
Sure. Yeah.
And there's good and bad to that.
Totally. And the thing about YouTube is, I mean, it's like run by 14-year-old boys, and that's not bad in and of itself, but that's not my,
hey, we're on YouTube.
That's not my, I know, but you're not running it. That's not my audience though. It's like, what are you going to cater to?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, you have to make something that you want to make, and if you can't find an audience doing that way, then you slowly meander toward what you think you could find an audience for. Yeah, there's no shame in that either. Being a stalwart and being like, I only do this because my passion. And you're like, okay, cool, but no one's gonna watch, man. So you got to find the audience too.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely.
How did you find your audience?
I'm still looking.
That's fair.
I think there's hundreds of people that I've talked to that saw Brick Madness, and that I've talked to one-on-one in person, whatever happened to be, that love the movie. And so there is an audience out there for it, absolutely. And I think there's enough people out there that are not entirely dissimilar to me that are going to like it. I'm going to think it's funny and going to think it's heartwarming and has a good ending and is entertaining and really checks off a lot of boxes that a lot of other movies don't. So I think it just needs to be, clicked on by more people. Well, honestly.
And I've never seen a mockumentary about Lego builders before, but I'm very excited to. I saw the trailer. I loved it. I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah, I totally watch it.
Anthony Taylor's, so he has that line at the very. He's Ricky Six, and he has the line at the end of the movie. He has a couple great lines in the trailer, I think. But when I grow up, Ricky Six. When I grow up, I want to be just like you. And he says, "That's inconceivable." Next, and like it's so good.
Oh no, I like that. Like his delivery is fantastic.
Man, he's the best. Yeah, and these are like 2 take things. It's like 4 hours of sleep, 2 takes, and we're moving on to the next. It's awesome. Yeah, so
it's always great when that can happen. Well, Justin, I think. Oh, go for it.
No, do you?
Nope, no, it's you. It's you, Karlana. No, I get to choose. It's you. Go.
Okay, I will take it. Knowing what you know, what advice do you have for those that are trying to do what you do, follow your steps, in the business, what advice would you give to them?
Get practice. Don't wait for something to happen so that you can take the next step. Just take the next step. I think that's important no matter what. You're going to make a million mistakes. And so you might as well get them out of the way. That's the first 10,000 pictures I took are the worst. That sort of idea is like, you need to get past that so that you can understand like what your theme is, what your idea is, what you're trying to accomplish too, because, to establish some sort of understanding of what you are as an artist has to happen sooner or later. So you might as well get it started now. That's one thing I would say that, a lot of mistakes I made too is like not having other people involved that I was accountable to where they could just handle it while I was doing other stuff. That would have been nice to have like a strong editor working on it that I could come back and look at it and be like, oh, tweak this, change that, but this is good. Or like I could do half of a scene, like put all the building blocks there and be like, refine it, fix it for me. Something like that would have been really great. Having just some sort, I would have liked to have had someone who I owed money to. I think honestly, it would have happened a lot sooner if I'm like, oh, I have to get this done because I owe that dude money if it doesn't get done now.
Sometimes that's the motivating factor, right?
100%. So that would have been nice. I mean, I'm not saying like go find a loan shark and figure out your next movie.
Actually, though, there was a guy who did that. He had this whole that was his whole process of how he got good at he wanted to do illustrating, and so that's how he got good at doing art. Is he made a bet where he owed his cousin $2,000 if he didn't get a certain amount of followers on Instagram.
Wow. Yeah, good for him. And so he's gonna try. Yeah, and I mean honestly, the only reason it got done, which is 2 years ago and 3 years ago now, was when it was like, I've still changed stuff since then, but when we actually did premieres in Fresno, and that was because I set a date, and I paid for the theater. I paid for a Edwards theater, like basically 2 months from whatever day that was. And if I didn't show up with a finished movie, then it was gonna suck. So I made sure I had a finished movie. Yeah. So you have to. Yeah, you absolutely have to set hard dates for you that you have no choice to wriggle out of. Yeah, and that wasn't like that 2 months was terrible. Like I pushed through it and it was good, and I accomplished what I needed to accomplish. So it was great. Yeah. And then after that, I would say distribution wise, it's like the grass is not going to be greener. Like if you're trying to talk to, I'm happy with distribution how it is now, and working with a little sister and all that. It's great. I'm not. That's not my point of the story. I'm saying like I waited a long time because I was trying to go through different avenues and different versions and try to just like hang back and see what happens and all that. And that didn't end up working out how I wanted it to. And I could just fast forwarded 3 years and it probably would have been better, 2.5 years, whatever happens to be. So like waiting for the best thing to eventually show up. I was talking about this the other day and I'm like, prom is going to happen. You can't keep telling people no and expect it to turn out good. Like the day before you're going to take whoever you can get. And so I am not in that situation, but you don't want to put yourself in that situation at all.
Right. No, that makes sense. Said. Well, I'm thinking that we are nearing the end of our podcast.
Oh man, this was so much fun.
I know. This has been delightful.
That's good. It's been wonderful. Thank you for joining us.
Any more questions? Do we have more questions?
No, I think the question well has runneth dry.
Jeez. All right, I'll go get my bucket.
Well, hey, I want to give a thank you to our listeners and everyone who participated in our show today. I want to thank Justin again for being our guest today. And where would you like our listeners to find you? And of course, you want them to watch Brick Madness. Where can they find that?
I absolutely do. Brickmadness.com is like not updated fully right now. I would say also go to Brick Madness on Facebook or go to littlesisterent.com. That's where you can buy the movie right now. So littlesisterent.com. That's what I would say. And then if you want to hit me up, you can find me on @JustinMakesMovies on Instagram, that sort of thing. But I'm the only Justin McAleece in maybe the whole world. I don't know. I've never heard of another one. So if you just type in my name, I'm like the first 10 pages, even though I've never done anything.
No, so, it made researching way easier. Yeah.
It's just a bunch of me.
Right away.
There's no competition. Just you got your SEO in order. It's fantastic.
It's my girlfriend who was my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time. They're like, "Oh, what's your boyfriend look like?" They were like, "Who is he?" And she's like, "Just type in his name. You'll see him. There's no one else."
Headshot pops right in there.
Done.
There you go.
Perfect. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. We had such a wonderful time today, and we just wanted to say thanks to everyone who was here today and who will be watching after our reload and repost and uploads and all that good stuff. Thank you so much for joining us, the How Do Artists podcast. On behalf of myself, Karlana Pedersen, and Ryan Caldwell, we would like to say so long, thank you, and we will see you next time.